Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a very blessed day. I want to real quick share with you a verse for the day, and it's in Jonah, verses 2, verse 6, and it says, I went down to the moorings of the mountains, the earth with its bars closed behind me forever. Yet you have brought me out of the pit, O Lord my God. And so powerful, so encouraging. You know, when looking into the story of Jonah, when God, in the very beginning, he seeked Jonah out. He went to him. He called Jonah. And Jonah did not accept the call. He refused. He fled. He ran. He tried to hide. And it's amazing to me how even though God knew in advance that Jonah would do this, that he would flee, that he would run, that he didn't let that future knowledge change his course of action in the present. And I look back in my past, and maybe you see this too, where before I led myself into my own pitfalls, my own storms, how looking back, and even in near present of how God does not, he does not change his behavior, and knowing if we're going to sin against him in the next minute, the next hour, the next day, but how he shows so much love in the present, so much attention, and brings so much joy. And there's just so much, and it's amazing to me how in that he chooses to do that. And then Jonah, through doing this, kind of leads himself into a pit, leads himself in the midst of a storm through this. And this now kind of adds in another element of where now leading into our own problems, leading ourselves into our own storms, leading ourselves into these big pits that they kind of become bigger than us, where it's like, how do we stop this? Like, what do we do? And, you know, it ends up leading to crying out to God, because the storm is just too much. They can't stop the storm. They have no control over this. And then through all of this, the level of mercy God shows and the time Jonah has within the fish and the prayer time, and the way God changes his heart by Jonah opening his heart to God and letting him come in, the amount God does for him in just 3 days is just, it's amazing. Of kind of the realization of who God is. And this verse really, I think, ties a lot together of how we lead ourselves to these pits and the bottoms, and how we feel overwhelmed, and God knows that we will do this. But then when we do it, it's amazing how in addition to love, he shows mercy. When we extend out our hands, when we cry out to him, when we open our hearts to him, of how quick he is to lead us out of the pit, the very pit that we let ourselves into. Very much is very similar to in Peter to walking on the water with Jesus. In the very moment he loses focus and gets distracted by the waves and by the wind, he starts to fall. And right when he starts to fall, he asks Jesus for help. Jesus right away catches him. And this is something that God does for us. When we the minute we do, he does respond. Now, he doesn't always respond the same ways, but he does always respond. He does always lead. Sometimes when we fall, he doesn't always just pick us up. Sometimes he does. Sometimes he does lift us up. Sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he's in a lifting. Sometimes he's changing the ground beneath so then we actually can stand. Sometimes if he's already changed the ground, sometimes he's given us the strength and all the abilities to be able to stand, and he's right there with us. So when we do, to be with us every inch of which we stand, and he's right there with us. He's right there in us, and he's right there always watching over. And it's just amazing to me, that combination of how, knowing in advance, he shows love in the present, and then when that does happen, when we do fall in, how when we cry out to him, even though we put ourselves in this position, how fast he is to show mercy and respond, come to our aid, and lead us out of the pit. And I just think that's so amazing, and I think it just truly is amazing. So I hope that this verse brings you encouragement for the day, and a good reminder of just even in hardest of times, and even if you're in the very middle of a storm, that God is able to lead you out of it. Even if you're feeling overwhelmed, there's nothing on this planet that can limit God, because God is beyond all things. He's above all things. He's the very creator of this world, and he can do all things.